I'm in the middle of Mara North, and I've got a week to turn some fairly mediocre images into some decent ones that perhaps Chris and Megan might like even. So I've got the tools, the optics here, got slightly bigger optic here, and we've got probably the most prolific, fertile and best managed conservancy anywhere in the world, let alone Africa. So welcome to Patience and Pitfalls, and Paul probably coming out in spots.
When you drive through hard-won parcels of conservation area, like Mara North in Kenya, you realise there are more important things than photographs. These lush and fertile pastures are prime examples of how, when all stakeholders benefit, conservation becomes second nature rather than just a greenwash. However, as a hobby, profession, job, call it what you like, wildlife photography attracts thousands of people, many trying for that perfect shot, which of course always evades them. What makes a good photo? Angle, light, symmetry, wow factor, background, all these things contribute, with most only arrived at after hard graft, but many pitfalls are waiting, lurking in the background, ready to ambush your perfect portrait. Weather, distractions, clutter, interference, crossover, and crucially, a lack of originality. Clichés are off the menu, unless they are utterly blinding ones. Essentially, all you really want is someone to look at your images longer than someone else's. A good photo is not just about decent composition or a degree in processing software geekiness. Research, fieldcraft, no fear of failure, ambition, boldness and patience all combine and contribute before finally the finger fuses with the shutter release. That last part is only 5% of the transaction. And if you fail, so what? It's only a photograph, but oh my, is it frustrating. And if it wasn't, we wouldn't do it. Critically, the animals seldom behave. Time and time again, they refuse to compose themselves in any sort of behavior conducive to my viewfinder. Time and time again, they don't even bother showing up, and when they do, everything else is wrong. But this is both the beauty and indeed the beast of wildlife photography. The most important critic of your work has to be yourself. Always. Except perhaps in this case, Chris and indeed Megan. If you find even a tiny detail wrong with your photograph, delete it. Otherwise it becomes corrosive. Move on. Try harder. Get up earlier. Study longer. In the short space of a week, with a couple of days on my own and a few guiding a dozen photographers, I foolishly tried to take on Chris's both rigorous and indeed often savage scoring system. Giving points for images may sound trivial, but it's one of the few ways you'll be able to know if you're getting any better. But get others to score them, and don't be oversensitive. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given was if you've taken it, don't take it again. i.e., look for something new or anticipate what might happen next. Also, many people I guide have seen images in books or online they would like to photograph themselves. They would perhaps be better served putting their own individual stamp or inflection on their imagery. Originality is tough when you have the rapacious demands now of social media, and indeed the sheer number of people poking cameras at feathered and four-legged creatures. So often the critical call sign is new light through old windows, which properly test the discipline and imagination of any photographer. Try to throw a new look on a tried and tested formula. I would far rather see a flawed, ambitious image than yet another chocolate box one. Cameras today bear little relation to ones even 10 years ago, let alone 20 or 30. Is it easier now? Undeniably. You can photograph at greater speed, with better clarity, and at times of day previously considered inconceivable. But it is still no cakewalk, and animals today are just as accomplished at refusing to oblige. But even on the rare occasions you get it right, remember it is just a photograph. The other day I read some pious photo pilgrim post that he was not a photographer, he was a capturer of light. Please, I'll tell you what he is. When you spend time in these priceless parcels of land with our high density of predators and other signature species, you realise that your camera can become superfluous against your own senses. But sometimes, just sometimes, there are moments that arrive when the ducklings, or indeed cheetahs or lions, all line up. This is rarely by coincidence. Firstly, you need to do your research. You need a proper vehicle with no problem driving off-road and critically not be harnessed by clinical timetables and opening times. This is where these conservancies score top marks. Also, you mustn't feel affronted at rising early, but actually want to get up early, rudely early. You have to know your camera, but not be a slave to it, and have patience, bags of it. Most importantly, you need qualified, local, seasoned sorcerers as your guides. One who understand every acre, every rock, tree, and blade of oak grass as if it was their backyard, which of course it is. These are the magicians that find you wildlife when your eyes say there's nothing there. You get all of that right, and you have a chance. But even if nothing happens, it's not the worst place to find yourself, knowing that a huge chunk of what any tourist pays here supports so many, two-legged and four, in these vital wildlife havens. Chris, Megan, the scoring's down to you. But that elusive faunal nirvana photograph will always remain elusive. There are plenty of perfect 10s in nature, just not on megapixels, as nature intended.